Poison Spark Pathfinder is a great build, and I had a lot of fun playing it. So much fun, in fact, that I decided to upgrade my gear. Now, when I talked about the build previously, I said any further min-max would be gratuitous. It could already do all the content including Uber bosses. And any min-max was gratuitous. But that doesn't mean I wasn't going to do it. And now, I can pretty much say that Uber bosses are easy mode. Minus Uber Exarch, but that has less to do with a build and more to do with me being bad at meteors. And so today, I wanted to showcase some Uber boss kills with a build, talk about a few things that I changed, and I even did Simulacrum. That's right, I sat through an entire 30-wave, incredibly boring Simulacrum just for you, so never say I don't do anything nice for you. And yes, when I did Simulacrum, I did of course have to enable my streamer hacks to change the mods. Leave a comment if you're an Arrow viewer and actually get the inside joke. The main goal of my changes was to incorporate more Fizz Taken As, so I could stand in more boss slams, while also incorporating Instant Leech because Instant Leech feels really good. In fact, I kind of went back and forth between Instant Leech and Life Gain on Hit, and ultimately ended up doing a little bit of both, getting some Life Gain on Hit on a ring, and going for Instant Leech on my tree. I did consider also going with a Life Gain on Hit Watcher's Eye instead of a Leech and dropping it entirely, but I found that just didn't feel as good. Well, yes, I did have my Life Flask. As it turns out, the Leech was making a difference, at least in terms of how the build felt, if not how it actually performed, because again, the build was already outperforming all the content even before I did any of this. And I know I stressed before that it wasn't necessary, but I wanted to mention it again because a lot of these upgrades are fairly pricey, and I don't want people to feel like they have to have them for the build to feel good to play. So before I get into those bosses, what did I change? First off, I grabbed Ghost Dance. I'm pretty sure I didn't have it when I originally talked about the build. The reason for this was I found I was spamming through a lot of mana by spamming Spark, especially with higher cast speed. So having Ghost Dance gives me a little bit of instant recovery. I don't have the best evasion rating. It's only about 11,000, but I am using it at Zeri's Reflection. I do have Grace on, and it felt like enough. I also picked up a new ring, the Damnation Loop. 8% increased max life, 86 max life. The goal was to get as many things with the word life on them as possible. And 16 life gain on spell hit. This feels absolutely amazing, especially when I'm hitting a room filled with enemies, like in Simulacrum. The other thing I changed is I reworked my build, ended up taking the Ethereal Feast node, and Leech Mastery for 10% of Leech's instant. I dropped Devouring Diadem entirely and picked up Eldritch Battery on my tree. This meant that I dropped a little bit of damage. The defenses I gained were more than worth it, because dropping Diadem meant I could get a helmet like this. Now ultimately, I ended up picking up some of that damage again with the Curse Effect nodes, though I could easily drop one of those, and instead replace this with Ailments deal more damage while focused, so I'd get my focus mod back. Though the build already had quite a few buttons to keep track of, so I decided to just leave it off for now because my damage really didn't feel lacking. This helmet gives 17% Fizz Taken As. I'm sure if I used higher tier Eldritch currency I could even get some more, a bit of cast speed for damage, and a nice amount of life and energy shield. The Fractured Fizz Taken As was moderately expensive but not exorbitant, and the mana reservation efficiency is from Essence of Loathing. Kind of a pain to spam, but I hit it in about 4 or 5 divs worth, got it enchanted, and was good to go. The spell suppression is far from necessary, it's just a quirk of where my gearing ultimately ended up. My other ring did also change. Unfortunately, I was trying to slam life gain on spell hit here, didn't hit it, but the ring was good enough that I decided, you know what, sometimes you don't need to change perfection, at least if perfection is my suffixes. The Tier 1 max ES does help my ES pool feel just a little bit better after dropping Diadem. And so then I retested my build against a bunch of bosses. The first thing I did is Simulacrum, where my concern was getting overwhelmed. There's a ton of enemies, and they're all hyper-aggressive. Especially if I ended up in a slow dot pool, something that I wasn't set up to immune. Would I end up dying? Well, my health bar would very scarily turn red, the Progenesis dot delay effect. But no, I in fact wouldn't die when standing in the scary dot pools. Or at least the scary negative action speed pools, while also being beat on by a bunch of enemies. I also let Kosis hit me, I let Omniphobia hit me, I let pretty much everything hit me because dodging is for chumps, and it went pretty well. Then I did Uber Maven. It should be noted that because not all of your recovery is instant, yes, the anti-healing beams can get you killed if you mess up. However, the rest of the fight was really easy. I was incredibly sloppy with how I placed the degen pools on the ground, and I was still able to run through them, or honestly just stand in them in Life Flask without too many issues. Damage-wise, Maven isn't the tankiest boss in the game, and she absolutely melted. I also tried Uber Cirrus, and by tried Uber Cirrus, I mean I fought regular Cirrus, because I completely forgot to allocate the Uber nodes, and I didn't realize until I was editing. So I guess enjoy the fight against regular Cirrus that isn't in fact Uber, and feel free to shame me for the 3 unallocated Atlas passives down at the bottom. Yeah, those were supposed to be the Uber nodes. And so my overall thoughts on this version as opposed to the other version. First off, you don't need 100% Fizz taken as to be incredibly tanky, especially if you have a little bit of armor. Once you get up to the 60, 70, or even 80% range, you'll be totally fine. In my current build, before Flask Effect, I've got about 15% from Taste of Hate, 40% from my chest, that's 55, and another 17 from my helmet, which is a nice round total of 70%. This means even fairly large Fizz hits are going to be completely mitigated by a fairly small amount of armor. And of course, because I have a bunch of Flask Effect from Pathfinder, it's probably closer to 80, which makes this even more effective. Thus, as an incredibly low armor build, I still have great Fizz mitigation. This is why I like Cloak of Flame over something like Lightning Coil. Not only do I get a bunch of free extra resistances from not having the negative, but I also get 40% of bleed damage taken as fire, which means I can run around without an anti-bleed flask and just tank it like a champion. Except I guess the champion probably wouldn't be tanking it, so tank it like a Pathfinder. But that said, those are the updates to my Poison Spark build. It still feels great to play, and it absolutely crushes all content. I do think going with a rare over the diadem is absolutely worth it if you can afford it. And getting life gain on spell hit on your rings feels great as well. I also think having Instant Leech is a super underrated mechanic, and really any build that hits should absolutely be taking advantage of it. I kinda didn't think it was going to be effective, since my hit damage is fairly low. I'm a poison build, and Deadly Ailments cuts your hit damage by a lot. Even with that, it felt wonderful, and I'm very glad that I ended up working it into the build. Not only was it great for mana sustain, aka ES sustain, it was noticeable on my health as well. So if you hit at all, even if you're primarily a dot build, consider working it into yours as well. With that said, this is more of a build showcase than a build guide, so if you want to know more about how the build actually works, do check out my previous build guide video. If you want a POB, then join my Discord, react to give yourself the community and notification role, then head over to the build link archive to find it. Unfortunately, I probably won't be able to answer any Discord DMs since I've been getting an incredibly high volume of them recently. But if you throw whatever question you have in something like the PoE general chat, I'm sure someone else will be able to help you, and if I have time, I might respond there as well. With that said, thanks for watching, and a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. If you're looking for something else to watch, maybe check out my Righteous Fire build showcase where I did the same thing to my RF build. Or if you want to know how either build works, check out their respective build guides. Don't worry, full written guide for RF coming soon on Maxroll as well. Be sure to keep an eye out for that over at maxrollgg/Path of Exile. But with that said, thanks for watching, hope you learned something, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.